If this ancient secret has found you, it means you're ready. But ready for what? Over the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal knowledge that has been kept secret for centuries. Very few people in the world truly understand how it works. And now, this truth has reached you. But before we continue, I need to warn you. This knowledge isn't for everyone. Most people will ignore it, dismiss it as a coincidence, or think it's just another random video. But you know it's not. Because something inside you has already felt that there's something greater happening. And now you have the choice to continue and uncover it, or ignore this calling. Have you ever noticed how certain pieces of information show up in your life at just the right moment? As if the universe itself had orchestrated everything so that, in that instant, something would reveal itself before your eyes. It might seem random, but it's not. Since ancient times, sages, mystics, and philosophers have spoken of synchronicity, the mysterious connection between events that, at first glance, seem unrelated but hold profound meaning for those who experience them. And there's something few people understand. These signs have always been around you. The difference is, only now are you ready to see them. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't chance. It's the universe in motion, guiding those who are ready to see beyond the obvious. Something inside you already knows there's more than what meets the eye. That internal restlessness, that search, is the calling that the great masters have always spoken about. When you're ready, the knowledge will find you. And now, the question remains, will you follow this calling or ignore it? Everything you see, touch, and feel, it all started in the same place. The invisible, the reality around you is not random. It never was. Since ancient times, spiritual masters and occultists have known something that took centuries to be understood. Thought creates. What exists in the physical world first originated in the mind. Your body, your life, your experiences, all of it started as an idea, a vibration, a spark of consciousness that gradually crystallized into something tangible. The ancients called this the Law of Mentalism. In the Kybalion, one of the most mysterious texts of the Hermetic tradition, this truth is summarized in 3 words. The all is mind. What does that mean? Simple. Everything that exists is consciousness in different forms. The entire universe, from atoms to galaxies, follows a single principle. Reality is born from thoughts and emotions. But there's a detail no one tells you. If your mind can create anything, why do most people remain trapped in cycles of limitation and scarcity? If a consciousness shapes matter, why do so few succeed in manifesting the life they truly desire? The answer lies in what was hidden. This truth isn't new. It has always been present, but it hasn't always been accessible. For centuries, this knowledge was restricted to a select few: kings, priests, alchemists, secret societies. Why? Simple. A person who understands they have the power to create their own reality cannot be controlled. Someone who masters their own mind doesn't need intermediaries. In ancient times, this wisdom was shared only with those who were ready. The Egyptian temples, the teachings of Eastern mystics, the initiatory orders of the West, all of them guarded this secret fiercely. They believed that knowledge without preparation could be dangerous. But was that the only reason? At some point in history, what was meant to set people free began to be hidden. What was meant to expand minds started to be restricted. Institutions grew, dogmas were imposed, and the idea that you have the power to shape your reality was erased, ridiculed, discredited. But that doesn't mean it stopped working. Quite the opposite. The mind continues to create. The problem is, without realizing it, most people are co-creating their own prison. The power to shape your own reality was never hidden by chance. It was concealed, fragmented, distorted. Not because it wasn't true, but because unrestricted access to it would change everything. In ancient times, this knowledge wasn't taught freely. In the temples of Egypt, In the initiatory schools of Greece, in the occultist circles of the East, only those who demonstrated discipline, character, and deep understanding were accepted. Knowledge wasn't just a privilege, it was a responsibility. Thought created, thought healed, thought destroyed. Those who mastered this art understood it couldn't be given to just anyone. The Egyptian mysteries protected these teachings within the pyramids and temples. Initiates underwent physical and spiritual trials before receiving any instruction. Why? Irresponsible use of this power could cause chaos. In Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries followed the same principle. Secret ceremonies, oaths of silence, and symbols only the prepared could decipher. Those who revealed what they learned could be punished, even with death. But why? Because knowledge was power. During the Middle Ages, the persecution of occultism intensified. The Kabbalah, Gnostic teachings, and alchemical principles spoke of mastering the mind over matter. But in an era where blind faith was encouraged and unquestionable obedience kept power structures intact, this idea had to be erased. Texts were destroyed, manuscripts burned, esoteric schools dissolved. Even so, the knowledge found ways to survive. Alchemists hid their teachings in metaphors. Lead turning into gold wasn't just about metals, but about inner transformation. Gnostics spoke of a mental universe where everyone was responsible for their own creation. Kabbalists taught that the physical world was merely a manifestation of the hidden. But all of this had to be spoken between the lines. Now think, what would happen if, instead of a select few, everyone knew they had the power to shape their own life? If every person awakened to the ability to create their reality, old structures would crumble. Fear would no longer serve as a tool of control. Scarcity would cease to be a weapon of manipulation. And that's exactly why this knowledge was buried. Not because it was dangerous in itself, but because a world of free minds wouldn't submit to anyone's control. What if what you say is a code, an invisible command shaping everything around you? Since ancient times, words have been seen as more than mere sounds. They carry frequency, intention, a creative power that few understand but that silently governs reality. In the Gospel of John, one phrase echoes this mystery. In the beginning was the Word. What does that really mean? That before anything existed, there was sound, a word, a creative impulse. Nothing happens until something is spoken, thought, assumed as truth. Egyptian priests knew this principle and used specific words to activate hidden forces. In Kabbalah, sacred names are composed of vibrations, capable of opening portals between worlds. The ancient sages of the East chanted mantras because they knew each syllable created waves of energy that reorganized the body, the mind, and even matter itself. But what does this have to do with you? Everything. Florence Scovel Shinn, one of the first modern thinkers to openly discuss the power of words, taught that what you affirm with conviction becomes your reality. Her book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, explains how words and beliefs shape a person's life, often without them realizing it. Now take a look at your own life. What do you repeat every day? Words of strength or words of limitation? Do you say, well, I can do it, or that's impossible? Do you declare abundance, or unknowingly reinforce scarcity? The mind is fertile soil, and every word is a seed. What are you planting? Science has started to prove what the ancients always knew. Researcher Masaru Emoto, in his experiments with water crystals, showed that molecules exposed to positive words form harmonious, beautiful patterns, while negative words break them into chaotic shapes. If this happens to water, imagine the effect of words filled with fear, guilt, or despair on your body, which is over 70% water. This means that nothing you say is harmless. Every phrase, every thought, every affirmation creates a field around you. How do you feel when you say, "My life is hard"? How does your body react when you say, "I never have any luck"? The answer is inside you, but few dare to question the real impact of these words. Let me share a story with you. In a distant kingdom, there was a wise craftsman named Azrael. He didn't build houses or sculpt statues. His craft was different. He crafted words. In the heart of the city, Azrael had a small workshop where he molded phrases and engraved thoughts onto golden scrolls. It was said that his words held power. and those who spoke his writings with conviction saw their lives transformed. One day, two young brothers, Samuel and Dario, heard about the craftsman and decided to visit him. They arrived distressed, as their lives were stuck in cycles of hardship and bad luck. "Master Azrael," said Samuel, "why does everything always go wrong for us? No matter how hard we try, life denies us any fortune." Azrael observed them for a moment and, without saying a word, handed each of them a sealed scroll. "Take these words and repeat them every day for 7 moons, he said. "Then return and tell me what happened." Samuel opened his scroll and read aloud. "My life is hard. Nothing ever works out for me. I am always betrayed by fate." He grimaced, but out of respect for the master, followed the instructions and repeated the phrases daily. Dario, on the other hand, unrolled his scroll and found different words. "The universe conspires in my favor. Opportunities appear for me. My path is guided by abundance." Though initially skeptical, he decided to follow the master's recommendation. Days passed. Samuel repeated the words, and each day his posture grew more slouched. His face darkened. Small misfortunes arose. Failed ventures, distant friends, dwindling energy. He began to believe he was truly doomed to failure. Dario, however, saw something different. He repeated his words and gradually felt stronger. His spirits lifted. His words attracted inspiring conversations, and doors opened where walls once stood. Even when faced with challenges, he found solutions. After 7 moons, the brothers returned to Azrael's workshop. Samuel arrived defeated. He slammed the scroll onto the table and said, "Your spell ruined me. Everything got worse." Dario, on the other hand, smiled and said, "I don't know how, but my life started to change. It's the same world, but now it seems to work in my favor." Azrael smiled and replied, "I didn't give you spells. I gave you mirrors, just words. But you were the ones who brought them to life." Samuel felt a shiver run down his spine. He had unknowingly cursed himself. Dario understood the lesson. What we speak isn't just sound, it's creation. Words plant the seeds of destiny, and the question remains, what words have you been choosing to plant? The transformation through consciousness. Transformation doesn't happen in the outer world, it begins within. Joseph Campbell called this the hero's journey, the moment life calls someone to something greater. But that call never comes as a peaceful invitation. It arrives as a crisis, as discomfort, as that feeling that something is out of place. Before the hero accepts their journey, they hesitate. They resist because crossing that threshold means leaving behind what's familiar. In Eastern mysticism, this moment is described as symbolic death, not a literal death, but a process of dissolving the old self, the self that carries fear, that believes in the limitations imposed by the past, that clings to stories of failure. For something new to be born, the old must die. Ancient teachings have spoken about this for centuries, but few truly grasp the depth of this principle. In Egypt, initiates underwent rituals of death and rebirth inside pyramids, where they remained in complete isolation for days. In shamanism, the encounter with the unknown marked the breaking away from the former identity. In Hermeticism, this is known as transmutation, not merely changing, but transforming into something entirely new. What no one tells you is that this process doesn't just happen to warriors, priests, or spiritual masters. It happens every day within you. With every choice, you can remain in the old identity or allow something new to take shape. But this transformation requires one condition: letting go of the old self. If your identity is rooted in limitations, "I always fail," "I'm not good enough," "the world is tough," then that will be your experience. If you want to co-create something new, you must release the invisible chains keeping your consciousness anchored to the past. And the most powerful tool for this? Imagination. Neville Goddard said that imagination creates reality, not as a metaphor, but as an absolute principle. What you see internally, what you feel as true, shapes the external world. This isn't just an esoteric teaching. Modern science is beginning to reach the same conclusion. The double-slit experiment, one of the most fascinating tests in quantum physics, suggests that the observer's consciousness influences how reality manifests. When subatomic particles are observed, their behavior changes, as if the very act of looking determines what exists. Now think about what this means. If consciousness can affect matter on a quantum level, what does that say about your daily thoughts, about the images you feed your mind every day? The truth is, you're already co-creating your reality, even if you don't realize it. But the question few people ask is this: are you creating consciously, or just repeating the old stories of the past? What you consistently imagine becomes an energetic pattern, a frequency that attracts events, people, and circumstances vibrating at the same frequency. The mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. The body reacts the same way to a past memory or a scene created in the mind. So, the question isn't whether you have creative power. You do. You always have. How can you apply this knowledge? But if we are co-creators of our reality, why do so many people remain trapped in cycles of fear, scarcity, and limitation? Because there is a veil. For centuries, religious, political, and economic elites understood something they never openly taught. Spiritual knowledge grants power. Not power over others, but power over oneself. And a person who understands they don't need intermediaries to access abundance, health, and inner balance cannot be controlled. This knowledge has always existed, but it was never widely shared. During the Middle Ages, manuscripts on alchemy and transmutation were burned. Books that spoke about the power of thought were banned. Great mystical traditions had to hide their truths in symbols, parables, and codes because an awakened society would mean the end of structures based on fear. Fear has always been the most effective tool for imprisoning human consciousness. The fear of failure, divine punishment, scarcity, the fear of dreaming big and failing, the fear of questioning. But what would happen if suddenly everyone realized these fears were implanted, that they're nothing more than illusions, barriers upheld only by collective belief? What would happen if people discovered their reality is shaped by conscious intention? They would free themselves, and that's precisely why this knowledge was never widely spread. Because a human being who understands their own power doesn't bow to dogmas, doesn't accept impositions, doesn't fear change. But knowing this isn't enough. Knowledge without application is just extra weight on the mind. Transformation only happens when you move from understanding to practice. Co-creation isn't an abstract concept. It can and should be applied consciously in everyday life. Great spiritual masters have always taught tools for this, often in coded ways. But today, these practices are accessible to anyone willing to take responsibility for their own reality. Meditation is one of the first steps, not just to calm the mind, but to recalibrate your internal frequency. A mind that is constantly restless, anxious, or dominated by negative thoughts has no space to create something new. Breathing consciously, observing thoughts without clinging to them, and entering states of inner silence, all of this paves the way for real change. Affirmations are another essential pillar. Every word you speak is a command to the universe. Deepak Chopra, in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, explains that intention must align with action. It's not enough to just repeat phrases like, "I am prosperous," if there's internal resistance and disbelief. The secret lies in feeling the words as truth, integrating them into your body and mind. Visualization is the bridge between imagination and reality. When you see, feel, and mentally experience something as if it's already real, your subconscious begins to accept it as fact. Your body reacts as if you're already living it, and your energetic frequency shifts. Neuroscience has already proven that the brain doesn't distinguish a real experience from one vividly imagined with emotion and clarity. Mental reprogramming is the final step. You can't co-create a new reality while carrying the same mental patterns of the past. The human brain operates with habitual circuits, and breaking old patterns requires repetition and awareness. This can be done through self-observation, questioning limiting beliefs, and continuous exposure to new ideas that strengthen the desired identity. The knowledge that was once hidden is now within your reach, but it will only become real when you decide to put it into practice. Before you go back to your usual routine, a special video has been prepared for you. Nothing happens by chance. If you've made it this far, there's something inside you asking for more. More understanding, more expansion, more control over your own life, and this next video might be the missing piece that finally makes everything click. Click on the video appearing on the screen now, and let's continue this journey together. I'll meet you there.